I'm talking about basic income, so let's start first with what is basic income. I mean, as many of you probably know, Ontario's decided to pilot this thing, but confusion reigns about what it really is. So the Basic Income Canada Network describes this as an income sufficient to meet basic needs and live with dignity regardless of work status. So that's the essential thing. We use lowercase letters. Basic income is an idea. Turning the idea into practical policy is harder work. So when you see articles about this, you'll see lots of different names and terms being bandied about. The names don't mean anything. Just ignore what somebody calls something. It's the design details and the principles that guide it that really count. There will also be variations across countries because each policy context is going to be different. There are two general models that I'll just very quickly mention. It's not really even important to understand them, maybe. But one is the demogrant, or sometimes called the universal basic income. Essentially, this means whatever benefit is available, everybody gets it. So everybody within whatever population we're talking about, Canada. The negative income tax model isn't really purely that, but we don't have a good name for it. It's based on those who need it most get it. So maybe the best way I thought to explain this is to use two real-life examples in Canada. It also helps explain why this isn't as radical as a lot of people seem to think it is. Seniors in Canada, through old age security, which almost everyone gets, demogrant, and the guaranteed income supplement for people with little or no other income, negative income tax, gets fairly close to the poverty line. So if we look at our basic definition, this does a relatively good job of meeting basic needs. No one determines whether a senior is worthy of this income. No one tells them how to behave or how to spend it, so it treats them with dignity. And it does not require people to have employment now or in the past, even though we know many seniors continue to work with and without pay. Children's benefits in Canada are paid to their parents. The money doesn't go to children. I have grandchildren. They would spend it all on Star Wars and starve to death. The money goes to their parents, regardless of their work status, and there is no stigma attached to this. When people earn income, they get to keep a fair share of it. If they lose a job, they don't lose everything. The amount, however, is based only on the children, not fully on family size or composition, so it only partially meets the basic income needs test for most families. I think it's really important to clarify what a basic income is not equally, because sometimes no one in this room, I am sure, but many people out there underestimate the size of the problem we're facing. The social assistance model is the default income floor for everyone in the working population virtually now in Canada. It is not a basic income. The amounts fall short of basic needs. It's stigmatizing and controlling, highly conditional on work status, and yet it has huge work disincentives. People depend on a large and confusing array of government and charitable services and programs to try to survive, to compensate for lack of income. This is part of the welfare wall. There's also a great chasm between social assistance and meeting all of your needs through employment. And that chasm is also part of the model. The fact that there's nothing much in the middle, that's part of the model. Basic income is not a replacement for public services. It complements them. And although there are many, many reasons why the idea of a basic income is appealing, it is also not a silver bullet that's going to fix everything. So now to basic income and gender equality. And this, for a lot of basic income proponents, is a difficult issue. So trying to bridge a couple of worlds here. Both dignity and the no work requirement aspects of a basic income are very important for women. Basic income is about the redistribution of money, power, and money is power in our society, and resources, and time is one of those resources, and it's finite. So I want to spend 1 minute on the opposition side before I get to my side. There are proposals being made by people who are concerned about poverty and about gender equality, genuinely, who see risks with a basic income, and they have different approaches. Some fear that a basic income would encourage women to leave the paid labor force and governments to do less to support women's employment, thus reversing gains that women have made. Some propose that money would be better spent by expanding public services such as childcare, affordable housing, transit, pharmacare, because that reduces the need for income, and that is true. Basic income proponents generally agree that we need these services, there's no question, but ignoring income and leaving the social assistance system intact is not going to solve our greatest problems, and here's why. So first I want to talk about work and time. Delinking income and employment is especially important for women. A large majority of income security in Canada is conditional on or tied to employment. And I wish I could explain this more, but quick list: employment insurance, including maternity and parental benefits, workers' compensation, Canada and Quebec pension plans, employer pension plans, RRSPs, veterans benefits, and social assistance, all tied to employment. But paid work is not the total of work, and overall, a far higher share of women's work time compared to men's is spent in unpaid work, often care work for children, and this is true even when mothers work full-time. Women's time use patterns are different than men's in another way as well. There's more multitasking, it's more complex, it's more interrupted on a daily basis and over the life course. So women's access to paid work and the security that goes along with it is really limited. Again, I wish I had more time. I'm such a policy wonk, I like these details, but there are ways that we recognize some of these things in Canadian policy already. There's a child-rearing dropout in the Canada and Quebec pension plans. I won't explain that now. Maternity and parental benefits recognize maternity. There's recognition of lone parenthood in the tax system. So some of these can serve as really good precedents for things that you would want to consider when you're building a basic income, but right now they're patchwork and they usually don't serve the people who need them most. Many advances in women's equality have been made in the paid labor force, access to a wider range of jobs, but by and large, over the last number of years, it's increased hours of women's work in the paid labor force that's keeping people afloat, either singles or in couples. So advancing that further is not a very good strategy for securing adequate household income. There's no more hours in a day, you can't do it. One really interesting result of the 1970s guaranteed income experiments was the discovery that women reduced their hours somewhat. And this was the fear of that era, that people were going to be lazy and not work. So according to the Fraser Institute's recent report, that terrible thing did in fact happen, and these women exhibited a preference for leisure, a strong preference for leisure. So what was really going on was that in an era without much in the way of maternity benefits, this version of a guaranteed annual income, and it was not even very high, allowed them to spend a little bit more time with their children. I have children, 2 of them. When they were little, I don't recall even getting much sleep, let alone leisure. So, but it goes, I was thinking about this when Anita was talking earlier about data. You need people to help you interpret data sometimes. The last part that I want to talk about, so that was work and time, which really has extraordinary gender components that are not being addressed in society. And one of the silly things I like to think about is that it's really unfortunate that we haven't figured out how to be human before the robots are about to take over. The second thing I'd like to talk about is the dignity part of a basic income. So this is the moral and ethical dimension, and interest in this is gaining ground. It also has enormous practical implications, however, because of what we know largely from developments in medical sciences. The way people receive income matters. Women's autonomy and control generally is limited by babies, bosses, boyfriends, and bureaucrats. We've heard a lot about this, to a much greater extent than men's. And when women's income support is most needed through social assistance, help is provided in a highly complex, time-consuming, stressful, intrusive, and controlling manner. I have a story, don't have time to tell it. We know that income is the determinant of determinants of health. We know that chronic hardship and stress are detrimental to our bodies and our brains. We know that adding stress and complexity to those who already have too much is a recipe for disaster. Robbing people of their dignity and autonomy is cruel, and all of this is very costly in human and financial terms. So my conclusion in this is that what a basic income provides is not just money. It's dignity, security, freedom, stability, flexibility, confidence, power, and resilience. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for a well-designed basic income to be good policy that can make a positive contribution to gender equality, poverty reduction, and human well-being.